his brother got in touch and offered to support my candidature in Baramulla. In hindsight, I have to say, perhaps foolishly, I said no. I said don't do it. Simply because knowing that Engineer Rashid was in jail, knowing how vindictive the BJP can be, knowing the fact that we are neither in power in the state or in J&K or at the union level, we would not be able to assist or save Engineer Rashid from any retribution that he faced. And I felt that it would be unfair on my part to make his life in Tihar more difficult.
Right.
So I told, I conveyed to his brother that look, you guys decide whatever suits you, you should do. Obviously, what suited them was to contest themselves, in which I understand he had a lot of help from elements within the BJP and allied parties, but that's a different matter.
So basically, they approached you, you didn't take their support, and then Engineer came into the contest.
Then they filed their papers.
So had you taken do you think in hindsight that you should have rather taken that support?
Well, obviously,
because
as I said, in hindsight, the right thing to do politically would have been to take their support. Perhaps as a human being, it would have been the wrong thing to do. And if for me, the choice is between being a good politician and a good human being, I'd like to believe that I'll be a good human being.
I'm joined by Omar Abdullah. Omar Saab, the campaigning for both the segments is over. What's your assessment of the situation?
No, the campaign has gone well. The response that we've seen in constituencies across the second phase, whether on Rajouri Poonch side or here around Srinagar, Badgam, Ganderbal, has been very encouraging. But ultimately, what matters is which way the votes are cast. And for that, we wait for tomorrow.
Right. And some time ago, you said that if National Conference comes to power, the first thing that you will do, you will pass a resolution in the Assembly saying that all that was done on August 5, 2019 is illegal, or you are not in favor of that.
That the people of Jammu and Kashmir do not accept what was done.
Right.
Which would be the natural, how do I put it, the natural conclusion that you would draw from that election result. Look, the BJP did what they did on the 5th of August 2019. If the BJP and its allied parties are, God forbid, returned to the assembly with a majority, then you can safely make the assumption that the people of Jammu and Kashmir have endorsed everything that has been done on the 5th of August 2019 and subsequently with regard to Article 370, domicile, laws and all the rest of it. But should the BJP fail to win a majority, clearly then the majority of the people of Jammu and Kashmir are not happy with everything that was done, and that's what the assembly should record.
So would a resolution come in the
Look,
assembly?
I'm not going to now, who's in a position right now to tell you when the resolution will come, what shape it will take. All that is for post 8th of October and for the elected government, whichever government it is.
Right. And in the Baramulla parliamentary seat, you lost to Engineer Rashid. Now he's out campaigning. How do you analyze Engineer Rashid's campaign? He's been released from the jail 20 days.
I think Engineer Rashid has a lot to answer for. Some of the things that he has said raise more questions than they answer. In an interview recently, he said that he had an hour-long meeting with Prime Minister Modi in 2018, during which Prime Minister Modi told him that he's going to remove Article 370 and that he wants Engineer Rashid's help in this. I'm actually stunned that Engineer Rashid knew 1 year ahead that Article 370 was going to be removed and did nothing about it, told nobody. I would like to believe that if he had told someone or engaged a lawyer and approached the Supreme Court, possibly the BJP would not have been able to do what they did. But he didn't. Similarly, the way some of his candidates have been speaking, I mean, most recently, his candidate from Birwa and the sort of language he has used about Sarjan Barkati's daughter. Extremely unfortunate. And the language that Engineer Rashid himself used against Mehbooba Mufti Sahiba, not done. By all means, oppose us, criticize us, but do it with some degree of decorum. Clearly, that's something that is expecting too much from him. As to how he will do, we'll wait for the 8th of October. Let's see.
Before the Baramulla parliamentary polls, his family members approached you. They wanted to support National Conference when he was not in the fray. Can you tell us something about that?
Well, his brother got in touch and offered to support my candidature in Baramulla. In hindsight, I have to say, perhaps foolishly, I said no. I said don't do it. Simply because knowing that Engineer Rashid was in jail, knowing how vindictive the BJP can be, knowing the fact that we are neither in power in the state or in J&K or at the union level, we would not be able to assist or save Engineer Rashid from any retribution that he faced. And I felt that it would be unfair on my part to make his life in Tihar more difficult.
Right.
So I told, I conveyed to his brother that look, you guys decide whatever suits you, you should do. Obviously, what suited them was to contest themselves, in which I understand he had a lot of help from elements within the BJP and allied parties, but that's a different matter.
So basically, they approached you, you didn't take their support, and then Engineer came into the contest.
Then they filed their papers.
So had you taken their, do you think in hindsight that you should have rather taken that support?
Well, obviously,
because
as I said, in hindsight, the right thing to do politically would have been to take their support. Perhaps as a human being, it would have been the wrong thing to do. And if for me, the choice is between being a good politician and a good human being, I'd like to believe that I'll be a good human being instead. So, theek hai, what's done was done, and I'm not the sort of person who lives with regrets.
Right. And Sarjan Barkati, he is contesting in one of the segments that you are contesting from Ganderbal, and not in the other segment, but in the neighboring segment.
That's because they misfired. They obviously assumed that because I'd represented Birwa in the assembly from 2015 to 2018, that if I did field myself from a second seat, it would be from Birwa. Myself, party colleagues that I spoke to, we had decided that we wanted to test our theory that Sarjan Barkati's candidature was not sort of an organic thing that just happened by chance. It was obviously thought about, engineered, maneuvered, based on what happened in the Baramulla thing. So we didn't announce candidates for either Budgam or Birwa until the very last minute. In fact, I was probably the last candidate to file papers from Budgam. Sarjan Barkati and his family made a mistake. They went to Birwa and I went to Budgam.
So why they deliberately propped up against you only? Because these are the two
seats. Look. But again, I mean, that's something that you guys need to ask. In 90 seats in Jammu and Kashmir, Sarjan Barkati fights 2. And the only 2 he fights are the ones that he assumes I'm going to be fighting. Look, these things don't happen on their own. I can understand. Engineer Rashid fighting from the north was the natural choice.
Right.
It's not like I contested from Srinagar and he followed me here. He had previously fought Lok Sabha elections in North Kashmir. He had represented a constituency from the North Kashmir in the assembly. So his fighting from the north of the North Kashmir seat wasn't unusual. But Sarjan Barkati has no connection with Ganderbal. He has no connection with Birwa or Budgam. He's from Zainpura, Vachi. I mean, it's for people to make up their own minds.
And your alliance with Congress, how has it helped so far? Because there are candidates that Congress has put up in the Kashmir Valley, which National Conference has strong presence in those areas. Like, let's talk about Tral. The candidate from Tral is not contesting on the National Conference ticket, but as an independent. And when I interviewed him, he said that if he wins, he'll give his seat to National Conference. Isn't it creating more problems than solutions?
Seat sharing arrangements are never smooth. Particularly for, let's say, National Conference and Congress here in Jammu and Kashmir, because we have no recent history of pre-poll alliances. We have only post-poll sort of understandings that we had in 2008. No, sorry, what am I saying? Yeah, in 2008, 2009. Our only other pre-poll experience in recent years or in sort of recent memory is 1987.
Right.
So, given that we had already sort of prepared 90 candidates for 90 seats, we were going to face some problems. And that's reflected, as you said, in, let's say, places like Tral and elsewhere.
Yeah.
Now, it is for the Congress to justify their having taken these seats from us by winning them.
Right.
Similarly, it is for us to put in a good show in the seats in Jammu area where we have put up our candidates. Let's see. On the 8th of October, we will know whether the Congress was justified in asking for all these seats.
Right.
And similarly, whether we should have demanded the seats that we did in Jammu.
Right. And lastly, these elections happening after 10 years, how hopeful are you about forming the government? You know, 10 years, a lot of things have changed. Jammu Kashmir is no longer a state, it's a union territory. For the first time, candidates backed by Jamaat Islami are in the fray. There are other things also happening. In the end, how do you see the situation developing? How hopeful are you that National Conference with its allies will come to power?
Look, I mean, no party fights an election, assuming from day one that they're going to lose, unless you're like the PDP,
So
which
from
day one has accepted that they're not going to be forming the government. They've termed themselves as kingmakers.
Kingmakers, right.
You're only a kingmaker when you're not forming the government yourself. National Conference allied with the Congress so that we could give people a serious sort of option about a post-poll government based on the assumption that no one party will completely be able to sweep the political landscape on both sides of the mountains. That said, obviously, it's for the voters of Jammu and Kashmir to decide what option they think is best for them. And we'll only know on the 8th of October.
You said PDP said that they want to be a kingmaker. If a situation comes up and they give their support, or would you take their support to form the government?
Look, I'm actually hopeful that we won't require a situation like that.
Yeah.
That the National Conference and the Congress will make up the numbers required to form a government. Anything else, any discussion other than that at this point in time is premature, because we still have the second phase that will go to polls tomorrow. And then 6 days later, we have phase 3.
Yeah.
So let's wait for that.
Thanks so much. That is Omar Abdullah sharing his thoughts with us.